you ever have a period where you're washing dishes or doing something completely removed from art, or it was just straight on? I'm focused on art. This is what I do.
For me,
still you, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Definitely. I was fortunate after art school. Yeah, those were the two jobs where I had another. It was a product development job, the sculpting studio. I guess that's what we called it. I did go to another company after the company I met my wife at. So those were the only three jobs, just those two product development places and the art supply store. So, yeah. And then eventually I started getting enough work with the books that I, quit that product development job and just worked as a freelance illustrator.
Well, I assume once you got that first book contract that came with the oversized novelty check that was more than you'd ever need to pay all the bills.
Well, I remember that book that I sold from when I was a teacher, Rob, I was paid $600 for that book and without any royalties. So that was all that I made. So I couldn't live on that for very long. So after I left teaching, while I was trying to get my foot further in the door, I was working at a library and as a clerk in the library, putting barcodes on books and paperbacks. So I did that for 2 years while I was sending more stories out and sending things to magazines. And the other thing that I did because unlike Mike, I've had long periods where I haven't had a contract for a book. What has helped me keep paying my bills is that after I'd left teaching, my first year when I was gone, the principal called me up and said, "Oh, David, would you like to come back and talk to the kids about writing?" And I said, "Well, I really don't know anything more about writing than I did last year when I was a teacher." And the principal said, "Well, we'll pay you." And I said, "Sure, I'll come back." So the principal paid me to come back and talk to the kids about writing. And then another school in the district said, "Oh, will you come out and talk to our kids?" And then another one and another one. And that ended up being really how I have been able to make a living, is doing school visits for many years. That's been my main source of income. And for me, it works really well because as a former teacher, I love being in the classroom and I love talking with kids and I miss being a teacher. And now I get to go in and do all the fun things that teachers do without having to grade papers or call up parents or anything like that. So I ended up in the perfect job for me. It was just a great stroke of luck.
No school board meetings for you. Just go do the thing you love and then out.
Yeah, no, it is. It's like being the favorite uncle, or now I'm old enough. It's like being the grandfather, where you have fun with the kids and then you give them back to their parents.
They had a lot of candy. I don't think they're sleeping tonight. Well, see ya.
That's right.
At least that's how my parents returned my child to me. So, so at what point, I assume a friend doesn't call up and say, "Hey, you should see David's illustrations. They're also amazing." So when do publishers find out that you also have this ability as an illustrator?
When I left teaching, I had my artist portfolio as well too, and I went to the editor who published that first book of mine, and I brought in my portfolio for her. And the second book that I published was one that she asked me to illustrate. So I wasn't the author of the second book, but it was somebody else's story she asked me to do the illustrations for. And like Mike, I guess I sent out some of my artwork samples, but I was working a lot more locally, Mike. I was taking my portfolio to either publishing companies here around Minneapolis or magazines around Minneapolis, working for some of the family magazines here and sending out art samples to some of those magazines that we had talked about, Cricket, Spider, Ladybug, and getting work that way. I've done some illustrating, but more writing. I was doing more illustrating early on in my career, and that worked well with some of the magazine work because I could write stories or come up with puzzles and then be the illustrator for them as well. That worked out very nicely. But really, almost all of the stories I've ever written, when I've submitted artwork, they've said, well, we like your story, David, but we want to have somebody else be the illustrator. And they choose excellent artists like Mike to be my illustrator, so I don't complain at all about that. I've only illustrated one of my own books in all the years that I've been an author and illustrator. So again, with artists like Mike, I know that they choose the right person to do the artwork.